Yeah. Oftentimes we have this preset idea of what we can do and what we're capable of and what we
Mm-hmm.
can't.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you kind of start to dismiss, the stories that you tell yourself of all the things that you can't do, and then you just
Yeah.
go and do it, it's amazing to look back and say, yeah, you know what? This is possible, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it takes that like one, maybe one experience that you have that, of course, like really gets you out of your comfort zone, really
Mm-hmm.
pushes you through all of those fears. But you kind of, for lack of better words, you take that like first initial step and that first action, let's say, and
Right.
it just takes that one. And then it becomes easier to do the scary thing over and
Mm-hmm.
over and over again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unleash the untapped potential within you as we dive fearlessly into the realms of healing, personal growth, self-love, and uncharted territories of the human experience. Join us as we navigate relationships, conquer career and business milestones, and explore the depths of spirituality. This isn't just a podcast, it's a manifesto for the resilient, the ambitious, the soul-searching women and men of today. Grab your coffee and let's dive in with Beyond the Surface.
Welcome back to another episode here on Beyond the Surface. And today I am joined by a dear friend and author and mother and incredible human being, Melanie. Thanks so much, first and foremost, for being here, for jumping on, for being here. I'm so grateful.
Thank you for having me on your platform. It's wonderful to connect again and just to be able to share.
So I'm really excited to just dive into your journey and what it's been like as a
Mm-hmm.
now author of two incredibly beautiful books, your first
Two
co-authored
books,
book,
yeah.
right? And then we have your beautiful children's book, which is more so what we're going to dive into today. But how crazy
Yes.
is that?
Who
Two
would have
books
ever
already.
thought? I would have never imagined. And yet here I am.
Really? I know. And I
Yes.
know it's writing is such a big, like dream of yours, right? Like that was just something that
Yes.
you really always wanted to do. And, it's interesting how it's like that one thing that we need just like catapults us, it's like we
Mm-hmm.
do the one thing and then it's like all the doors open up and everything just
Mm-hmm.
starts to, everything, just all the pieces start coming together because realistically, like how far apart did these come out together? Like, what's the time frame? You probably have a better
Oh
idea
my
than I do in my
gosh.
brain.
I'm so bad with dates actually, but
Me too.
less than 2 years. Like less
Yeah.
than 2 years. Yeah.
Wild. Oh my gosh.
Yes. Well, I always say, it's amazing when um, oftentimes we have this preset idea of what we can do and what we're capable of and what we
Mm-hmm.
can't.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you kind of start to dismiss, the stories that you tell yourself of all the things that you can't do, and then you just
Yeah.
go and do it, it's amazing to look back and say, yeah, you know what? This is possible, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it takes that like one, maybe one experience that you have that, of course, like really gets you out of your comfort zone, really
Mm-hmm.
pushes you through all of those fears. But you kind of, for lack of better words, you take that like first initial step and that first action, let's say, and
Right.
it just takes that one. And then it becomes easier to do the scary thing over
Mm-hmm.
and over and over again, right? I
Mm-hmm.
feel
For
like I
sure.
resonate too with like just the way in your books is just like the way that I started speaking for the first time. I was like a mess. And I was like, what? Why am I doing this to myself? Why did I put myself in this position to be on a stage by myself in front of an audience? Why did I do this to
That's
myself?
hard.
But then completely shifted my entire like perspective, my world, everything. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like, you really I think you find a deeper part of yourself in these moments in a way. I don't know if
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
resonates.
Absolutely, yeah. I have very similar experiences. Public speaking was never my strength, never
Right.
an interest. I mean, I remember at one point in my career, like sitting in a staff meeting and wanting to share, being asked a question, and my heart like palpitating as I like raised my hand, and I'm like, oh my God. But,
Sweat.
you're right. Yeah,
Turning
right.
red.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
heat wave,
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things where you're like, huh, okay, I did it once, I survived. I could do this again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So walk me through like the whole process. Obviously, like we were together during this process of the children's book, from just
Hmm.
like your perspective though. Like what was that like for you? What were, those moments that really challenged you? Because I feel like in those moments where we're really
Wow.
challenged is where so much goodness, like lessons and wisdom comes from.
Hmm. Okay, well, do you have like 3 hours or so? Because, you know what? So, as a child, I was always an avid reader. Like, I could finish a book in 1 to 2 days and just like really be involved in the story. Like, I would become the character. And it just brought me so much energy and just so much joy. And from a young age, I knew, I wanted to be a children's author. I loved books and I wanted kids to experience the same experience that I did through reading. But of course, I had other dreams as well. I wanted to be a teacher. And, life happens. So, you go to school and you think, well, I'm just a kid. Who's going to, support me in writing a book? Or how am I going to do that as a child? Right. And then, you go off to university or post-secondary schooling and you think, okay, well, I'm so busy. I don't have time for this between school and part-time jobs and then you get your career, you get married, and all of these life changing things happen and you kind of start to put your dreams on the back burner. And then of course I had children and life just becomes life. It becomes busy and preoccupied with so much other goodness, but you kind of start, or at least I did, started to forget that part of me. And in raising my own children, I have seen a lot of myself.
Mm.
And I, always have the discussion with my children about having a growth mindset and about, taking risks in life and, conversations about being your true self and focusing on the things that bring you joy. And it just came to a point where I thought to myself, I'm saying all the things, but I think what holds more weight is my actions or are my actions. And I wanted my children to take me seriously, to not just think, oh yeah, mom's preaching again, but like to really understand that what I'm saying are things that I mean and things that I own. And so, through one of my colleagues and dear friends, I was introduced to this collective that was happening. And I thought, you know what? I want to jump on that. I think that this is a calling. Like, there's a reason that I was introduced to this. This is now an opportunity. And it was scary because, like we just talked about, it's hard for many people to not only speak publicly, to share not just your ideas, but your life experiences, and to put yourself on a platform that's quite vulnerable, right? But then again, I think at that time when Far Beyond Me was coming together, it was easier to ignore the stories of why I couldn't or shouldn't and just focus on why I was doing this. I was doing this as a way to show my kids that, number one, you can do hard things. Number two, it's really important to follow your joy. And number three, to be true to who you are and to know that you can have multiple identities. So, yes, I'm mom. Yes, I'm teacher. Yes, I'm wife. But I can also be author too. And that was just a beautiful experience to be able to connect with four other women. We are all of different walks of life, but also just regular humans sharing a story, hoping to connect with other women and to help bring comfort and inspiration to others. And that was such a cathartic experience for me, and an experience that was so reflective and fulfilling, because I think when you're writing, especially nonfiction, you're writing about your life, it really lends itself to reflection, and it really gives you an opportunity to notice your journey, where you have been and where you have arrived. And you're always arriving somewhere, right? But I just remembered that feeling. And shortly after, I remember emailing you and Tina saying, okay, it's time.
It's
Like,
done.
I'm ready. Let's do this. And that's when I decided to write my beautiful book, What Would You Say? And this was just a dream come true, an opportunity to finally write a children's story and to finally be able to say, hey, I'm a published children's author.
Journey, eh? Like,
It's wild.
But I think you said such a key point. We don't have to, and I reflect on this all the time. We don't always have to know where we're going in the sense, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe not necessarily. We don't always have to know where we're going. Yeah, I think that's exactly what I meant to say. Sometimes I think we get so hung up of like, well, this is what I want to do, and this is where I want to be, and we get so hyper focused on that
Yeah,
one outcome.
for
And then
sure.
there's all these other kind of little like ideas floating around that are just like
Mm-hmm.
waiting for you to notice them. And the thing is
Yes.
once we finally notice those other pieces, or those or we remember, right? Because for you it was more of a remembering that, oh yeah, like such a big dream of mine. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe I've forgotten for a little while, because yeah, life happens. But when we just continuously follow those little nudges of joy, the things that just bring us joy, and we focus more on the joy that it brings us rather than the fear, because I think you're always going to have a little mesh of both. There's always going to be a little bit of
Absolutely.
fear
Mm-hmm.
in what brings you joy, and the scary things that you want to do, because vulnerability, right? Like
Yeah,
vulnerability is such a big piece of all of this, that
for
um,
sure.
it's scary to put, whether it's your story out there, but also even a book, right? Like whatever that looks like, it's like, are people gonna like it? Are people gonna resonate? Like there's
Mm-hmm.
all of this happening, and yet at the end of the day too, it's just like, it comes down to, there's, if you can focus, shifting the focus over to the joy and the dream, it's like it ends up being so worth it at the end too, when you can
Right,
shift that little focus more on the joy. There is always going to be that
right.
fear,
Yeah,
but we
and you
can't
and
let fear run the show.
no, and like you mentioned before about, like, what were the challenges? And it's funny because it's so easy just to be fearful. Like, it's so easy just to say, just a dream. I can't do it. Like, no, like, it's not possible. And that that comes out because you have this fear, this insecurity, this the unknown brewing inside of you. So it would have been easy for sure to say, you know I can't do this. I shouldn't do this. I'm a teacher. I'm a mom. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a regular person. Like, I'm not a Nancy Tillman, a Barbara Reed, a Robert Munch. Like, I'm not an author. I'm not a real author. I didn't go to school for writing. Like, who's going to take me seriously, right? Or I could have said, well, you know what? What if nobody buys this book? Then, all this time and all this effort, like, for what, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, my end goal was always, my children and to be an example for them. Yeah, those things all could have happened. People, could have said, no, I'm not interested. I don't want to buy your book, or, oh no, I'm not going to take her seriously. She's a regular person. She's a teacher, she's not an author. But I think that when you put those fears aside, you realize that regardless of the outcome, well, for me, regardless of whether I sell 100 books or 100,000 books, what matters is the process within it. So yes, of course, the challenges of, making sure that the outcome was what I wanted it to be, to have my story reflect my thoughts. Of course, you want it to be a success and for people to notice and purchase it. But at the end of the day, the process was really what held the weight, and, that joy that it brought me to sit and write a story that really reflected my own childhood experiences and really reflects the messages that I want to provide for my children, but also my school children. Right. And all the, children reading the story and all the adults alike that are going to read it. And so had I not taken the risk to do that, had I let my fears win, I wouldn't have been that strong example for my kids to say, you know what? Yeah, it's okay to be afraid. It's okay if things don't necessarily go my way immediately, but look, I did it. I did it, right? Yeah. Or, I wouldn't have experienced that fulfillment, and I wouldn't have been able to say, like, I have accomplished something that I have so deeply yearned for in my life. And so, yeah, I just think that, we have to focus less on the what ifs and the I can't because, and just go find your purpose and just do it.
Yeah. And come back to, like you were saying, right? Coming back to like why, really like anchoring in on why it is that you are doing the thing, whether it is for your children or whether it is fulfilling this lifelong dream, like whatever it is, at the end of the day, that is always going to be something that drives you. Always, 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 always going to be something that drives you. I'd love for you to share too, because one of the things that I think I've just become in awe of, or I'm just so much more in love with, is there are just different books that are coming out now, especially children's book, that have this beautiful underlying message. And it's not just like, here's a story, right? Like there's something in it. And it feels different from the books that I kind of read when I was younger, or just, so I'd love for you to just share a little bit of like the story beneath the story of this children's book specifically.
For sure. I'd love that. Well, it's funny because in my profession as a teacher, the one thing that I adore most is my literacy program. And I love to be able, again, because I love books and I love reading, I love to be able to take a book and to really dive in with my students. And, we'll spend a week reading the book over and over again, certain parts of the book, and having discussions about the book and connecting and reflecting and doing all these wonderful things that just brings us closer to the characters in the story, and that teach us a lesson. Because I think you're right. I think, more and more as time progresses, books are being written with a deeper thought, with a deeper meaning. And for me, this story is really about looking within to find your inner strength. And so for me as a child, I was always, a shyer character, not a risk taker, afraid of taking risks. And, didn't really put myself out there. And, as you get older, sometimes that changes. And for me, it didn't. And I was more on the anxious side of things and always had these stories in my head about why I couldn't or why I shouldn't. And for me, it was really important to deliver a message to children, regardless of what you're thinking in your mind. Our thoughts are not our reality. Our thoughts are thoughts. They're ever flowing, they come, but we also can release them,
Mm,
either intentionally or they're released on their own.
yeah.
But I think what happens is oftentimes is when we as children or even as adults have certain thoughts, it's almost as if we start to own them. They become us. And that's something that we need to stop doing. And we
Yeah.
need to teach children ways not to. For me, I could have written this book ages ago. I could have written many books by now. But again, my fear, my insecurities stopped me from doing so. And I really want children to know that regardless of what your thoughts are telling you, our thoughts are not our reality. Our thoughts can be our reality if we allow them to, but in fact, they're not. And the important message of this story, through the characters, through the elements of nature, is that you must learn to look within yourself to find your inner strength and use that inner strength to bring you joy or to bring you to your goal or to a place where you want to be.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it so much. It's so good and so beautiful. Um and I'm curious too, like with this intent and also just this way of thinking that you have. And it's through, our experiences, right? Like I think through your experience of having anxiety, and that's been something that has been the challenge, and also at
Mm-hmm.
the same time brings you this wisdom of reshaping and being able to come to this idea, or just, I feel like we hear it all the time. It's not the first time that I've heard someone say, your thoughts are not your reality. It's not the first time, but I think
Mm-hmm.
we begin to hear it differently. And I love that, there's always just things that I feel like the school, the education are just like, these are the types of people. And it does come from the teachers. I feel like is the teachers having such a big role. And some are just going to follow curriculum, but it's like when you bring your experience into it, and you bring this like mindfulness and these different aspects, these tools into your classroom, you
Mm-hmm.
are creating, well, supporting this creation of beautiful little humans in our next generation. And it's such a powerful thing. And i'm I'm in awe of when I am met with teachers who carry the same just energy that you carry. I still remember my grade 3 teacher. I still talk to him to this day because of the
Oh,
impact he's
wow.
had on my life. And it just takes those, yeah, it just, there's a different place in my heart for, the teachers that bring themselves into it, right? Like, and I think that's
Mm-hmm.
something that you do. And I'm curious too, like, what's it been like to bring this into your classroom, and also just the other tools that you bring into your classroom? Like, what's that been like?
You know, it's very easy to just focus on curriculum. Here's the Ontario curriculum, create a unit plan and go.
Yeah.
But really, like, our life is a curriculum. Like, you need to bring the real world into the classroom. At least that's how I feel,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, you can support children in becoming, level 4 A students. But if they don't have the tools necessary that support them in, building a life where, they're able to cope with challenges. They're able to self-regulate. They're able to make decisions, communicate. If they don't have a solid foundation for mental wellness, what good is that level 4 going to do for them in the future? And I think it's a life skill. It's a necessary skill. And for me, bringing mental wellness practices into the classroom, it is a necessity. It's a non-negotiable. And, every morning we start off with, have my lights down low. I have some, calming music playing, some sort of visual scene projected on my projector. I love the Calm app. I have to say it's my favorite. So we put on some sort of winter scene. And so already, the kids come in with this feeling of calm. And, in our day and age where life is busy and full of demands, it's easy to walk into a classroom and feel the heaviness of more demands being placed on you, more expectations, more tasks. But to walk in my opinion, to an environment where it is infused with calm, really helps them to come in and to ground and to be able to self-regulate and be ready for those challenges and the demands in the day. And so one of the other things that I've really enjoyed and really seen a lot of growth in the students is in belly breathing and teaching them how to properly breathe. So we come in and we get settled, we get our things ready, and we sit in circle. And I've begun my practice with teaching them to use an Obermann ball. So they've really learned how to properly breathe from the stomach and how to release their breath using the visual of this ball. And it's amazing to see at the beginning of the year in September when, after just not even a minute, they're disengaged and they're ready to just move on. Or, the shallow breathing, okay, yeah, I'm breathing, right? This is it, right? And then by the end, you see them really not only being able to breathe properly, but to breathe with intention, and oftentimes to ask for moments throughout the day where we can sit and stop and do some breathing. And we have a lot of discussions throughout the year about, why do we need to breathe this way? What benefits does it have to our body? What benefits does it have to our mind? And so there's a lot of brain-based teachings that I try to infuse in my program as well to teach children about the brain and, why do we think the way we think and why do we act the way we act? And well, it's because of all of these components in our brain that work together to make us do so. And so I going back to your question, I think, we're so fortunate as educators. We have such a difficult job because we wear a multitude of hats. We are a teacher, we are a therapist, we are mom, we are parents, all everything. But there's such a gift within that because we have the opportunity to really mold these children into little beings that become self-empowered, and they are the leaders. They are our future leaders. And it's a gift to be able to do that despite the challenges in between. And I think for that reason, I just feel like the role that we play is to advocate for these kids. And they need us to do so until they can do so themselves. And this is just one of the ways that I enjoy doing so.
Yeah. I think one of the things too, I just think about like all the different aspects and qualities that you, through all of the work that you bring into the classroom, the confidence that it instills in them in so many ways, for them to simply ask or, learn that aspect of speaking up for themselves or, hey, can we have that moment to slow down and breathe? And that is also the big thing that was kind of like screaming at me as I was listening to you is just we are so go, 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 go. Do this and then go do that. And then you go this. And even in school, it's like, all right, we're doing this subject for X amount of time. And then we're going to switch over to this. And then we're going to
For
go
sure.
here.
For
It
sure.
is just, okay, it's recess. And then like,
Yeah.
we're always moving. And so we're learning that at such a young age.
Yes, and we need to be careful. We need to be careful because it's very easy to become robotic in this role.
Yes.
We are confined to timelines and schedules and bells and whatnot. And I think that oftentimes when you're in an authoritative role,
Mm-hmm.
it's as if children don't see you as human. Like part of your humanity sort of becomes dissolved, I feel.
Yeah.
And so I think when you allow yourself to be human,
Mm-hmm.
then what you're showing these young, impressionable children is that anything is attainable and that feelings are okay and that it's okay to stop and take time for your self-care. And oftentimes I will model that. So, whether I am doing it intentionally or I just want to take an opportunity to model a skill, I might stop and say, you know what? I'm actually noticing the way my body is feeling right now. I feel like my heart is starting to pick up its beat a little bit. You know what? I think I just need to take a moment. So, kids, if you wouldn't mind, I'm just going to pause. I'm going to do some deep breathing until I can regulate myself again. Okay. So let's try. And so they see that, oh, okay, you know what? Teachers get anxious too. And teachers take time to, care for their bodies and their minds. Okay, this is important. Because when we show them that it's valuable, not just say that it's valuable, but when we show them that it's valuable, they will believe that it is and they will internalize that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also what I was thinking about too with the fact that like you also come in and they sit in circle and they breathe. And it's not just like, all right, let's jump into this. Like
Right.
that aspect, and I think maybe that resonates so much lately is because that's just how I've also been seeing my mornings as well for, the last like year and a half is just how sacred that time is. And they might not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily have that space in the morning when they're at home because so many factors, right? Like parents are rushing off to work and it's just very go, go, go. And
Mm-hmm.
so to be able to land in a space and also just that to land in a space, right? And just have the
Mm-hmm.
space to just be for a moment, right? Even if it is a
Mm-hmm.
minute, right? Like however long they
Mm-hmm.
can be, but just that calmness adds so much. Like we can learn so much from just how we approach, the difference in when we're kind of feeling the anxiousness, that just we're kind of feeling just like chaotic, right? Like, and that's where obviously the coming in to regulate your body comes into it.
Mm-hmm.
But just how different we operate from that space when we are feeling anxious, and then what it
Mm-hmm.
looks like when we can come at a place that's calm, and how
Right.
we operate differently in a classroom, in life. And so these are just
Mm-hmm.
such skills that are just like I'm so happy to hear that you are teaching, and it's a ripple effect in so many ways too, because
Yes, I
kids
hope
are cool.
so.
Kids are so cool in the sense of like, I did this at school today, let's go and do this, and then they go show their parents, right?
I
It's
hope
like
so. I
like
would love for that. I mean, that is definitely a goal of mine. But there's something to be said about how you begin your day. The way you begin your day
mhm,
really sets the tone
exactly.
for the rest of your day and how you're
Hmm.
feeling and how, productive you are. So, whether it is through belly breathing or whether it is through, keeping a gratitude journal or
Hmm.
it could be anything, like, and it has to be personal, whatever works for you best. But I hope that, the students in my classroom not just adopt the belly breathing strategy, but, to understand that they can and they should find tools that work for them and use those tools.
And then they have, this beautiful toolbox, and, they get to try on what works for them and what doesn't. But I just feel
Exactly.
like I could see it, kids can be, they're not shy in the sense of like, not, maybe not all, but, little kids can be bossy sometimes. So I can imagine like them coming home and be like, we're going to breathe, Mom. This is what I learned in school today.
Yeah.
Let's breathe together. What a
I would
cute
love
little,
that.
right? What a cute experience that it would bring into the home too. So I just feel like it
Yes.
has its ripple effect in so many ways, like in
Yeah.
bringing it back home, but then also just
Yeah.
down the line as they continue to grow up, right? And as
And
they
how
continue.
empowering for them if, they're coming home saying, guess what we did? Okay, let's sit down, mom and dad or
Yeah.
parents, or, we're going to do some belly breathe. Like how empowering for them
Yeah.
to be able to own that. And like, this is a skill that I've learned. This is a skill that's important. And to be able to take on that leadership role and teach
Mhm.
their family members that
Oh,
tool. Who
yeah.
knows? Maybe it'll be beneficial for them.
Exactly. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I love it. The other piece that I'd love for you to, we talked, obviously we talk a lot about like you in your classroom and whatnot, but also what does it look like with your kids and that home life too, right? And just you wear many different hats now, adding on the layer and
Mm-hmm.
the hat of being an author in this piece too. But I know
Mm-hmm.
like one of, especially in Far Beyond Me, one of the biggest, like the story that you really shared was just the anxiety and navigating that. And so what has that looked like, having anxiety, being a mom,
Mm-hmm.
also being a teacher? Like, how does that come into your day? How have you navigated that? What does that look like for you?
Mm-hmm. Let's see, what time is it? It's 11:12. Okay, we might need another 6 hours in the day. But in short, um, you know, I think that when you are someone who lives with anxiety like I do, you live this duality, right? And there's moments in the day where you have it all together, and other moments in time where it controls you. And, I think for me, it really escalated when I became a mom, because then it was like, oh my God, now there's this human, this real
Hmm.
life being that I am responsible for. And, you have such a profound love that develops within you for this child, and one you've never really experienced. And it's like you have to do everything in your power to make this little being healthy and safe and happy and all of the things.
Hmm.
And that can be overwhelming for someone who lives with anxiety.
Yep.
And, I have found that it is really important to do the inner work, because when you are healthy, your children are healthy. And for me, I didn't want to walking through life having these certain practices, you know, anxiety practices that my children would learn from. And I wanted them to be able to learn healthy habits and healthy coping skills. And in order for them to do so, I needed to be modeling that. And so, of course, it takes work. It takes, I mean, there's so many different resources and supports out there. And, it's not one size fits all. It's really personal to what works for you. But for me, I really found the practice of CBT very helpful as a way to really learn to challenge your thoughts and then reshape them. And then the self care piece. So, meditation and belly breathing, and just trying to become more aware of my inner experiences and my thoughts. And that's been very helpful for me as a parent and also as a teacher. And, in the day to day, if I'm experiencing something, I'm okay with expressing that out loud
Mm.
and saying to my children, you know what, I'm feeling a little bit anxious right now. I'm going to go and, sit in our meditation room, or I'm going to go and sit down and, do some belly breathing, or I'm going to go and, meditate, or I'm going to go and write down my thoughts, or I'm just going to go over my checklist, or whatever it is. And that helps me at that time.
Yeah.
And, that's a way for them to see, oh, okay,
Mm.
mom is experiencing this. That's an okay feeling. That's a normal
Yeah.
feeling. Okay, and this is what she's doing about it. And I think that is the key. That is crucial. And it's just one of those things that I have adopted over time. And it takes work, right? There are many times where, being a mom and a teacher at the same time is overwhelming. And so things like checklists help for me, right? So I know that I'm the type of person that gets very easily overwhelmed. So I keep a running checklist, right? I focus on the things that need to be done now and not on the ones that can wait, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if need be, I tell myself one day at a time or one task at a time.
Yeah.
And I think that in doing those things is not only helpful for me, but helpful for my children.
Yeah. I think
Mm-hmm.
back to what you were saying about, showing the human and in your classroom. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
plays the exact same role at home and just
Mm-hmm.
bringing back you are human, right? And as parents, and I think I see this more now, although I don't have children, but um, I think my relation to it is I look at my parents in this different light and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
they're human, right? And sometimes we have this thing of we
Right.
put our teachers, we put our parents on this pedestal. They're supposed to be perfect. They're supposed to know it all.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's a lot of pressure on the reversal
Yes.
role, right? As a parent,
Yes.
as a teacher, that's a lot of pressure. And
Yeah.
you don't always have everything figured out. And there's no necessarily reason that you have to have it all figured out. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to have all the answers, and bringing back the humanness of who we are and just that essence and bringing truth, right? Like being able to, I think that's such a beautiful and empowering thing for you is also just being able to be fully yourself too, right? And what that also brings to the table and also encourages them to be their full self
Mm-hmm.
and to communicate what they're feeling. That communication piece, I feel like we didn't really highlight it too much, but the communication piece of all of this, communicating
Mm-hmm.
our needs, voicing it out loud, are all things that we're not necessarily taught. And unless someone's
Right.
modeling that for us, unless someone
Right.
we're seeing someone doing that, we're not going to know that, oh, it's okay for me to actually say, I'm feeling this right now. I need this. You know,
Mm-hmm.
in depending on your household and how you grew up, sometimes, often, it was not. It was the mask. And I think
For
that,
sure.
and I always give, I always see it from the lens of like, I understand, my parents and even just my sisters and the mask that they were always trying to put on to like protect, and I
Mm-hmm.
understand that, and I understand why they thought that was the best thing too. And I think at the end of the day too, it's like, and on the reversal of that, it's what would things have looked like if they were honest about what they were feeling,
Right. Right. Like,
right?
could you imagine, like, you know, there was a time in life where, if you showed emotion, that was being vulnerable. And being vulnerable made you weak, right?
Yeah.
Less prepared, unprepared, right? Not strong. Like, talk about anxiety provoking. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there was a time, and I think that we as a society are doing a far better job. We're still on our journey. We haven't arrived, but we are doing a far better job in understanding mental wellness, in recognizing it, and providing opportunities, tools, resources for people who not just need it, but for everyone. Because I think that these practices, you know, don't necessarily just need to be used, if you're someone who's experiencing anxiety. But I think when you adopt these practices of, open communication, body and mind awareness, be not shying away from feelings and teaching children that all feelings are valid. All
Yeah.
feelings are necessary. Like oftentimes I'll say to my students, you are experiencing such and such because that is your brain's way of telling you that this is what you need, right? You need whatever it might be. I can't think of an example right now. But our feelings, whether it is fear, whether it is sadness, whether it is anger, those feelings exist on purpose because that is your brain's message to you that you need to, do this, or this, right? And those feelings are okay. And I think that when children understand that, then they penalize themselves less and hopefully not
Yes.
at all, right?
Yes. Yes. The
Mm-hmm.
whole normalizing, what you said that earlier too, of just normalizing the emotion. And that's what, just normalizing it as a way of being too, right? Normalizing the different emotions that we feel, because we're human and we have
Mm-hmm.
that gift of being able to experience all these different ranges of emotions. And I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it goes back to what you were just saying of like we penalize ourselves for feeling anxious, feeling angry, feeling
Mm-hmm.
resentful, feeling all these
Mm-hmm.
different things, and yet they're simply, existing on purpose. They're simply this little signal, this notification. I remember someone saying,
Mm-hmm.
using it as a notification. I was like, oh, I love that. Just
Yeah,
like
that's
this
actually
little,
perfect. Yeah.
right? It's a notification that, hey,
Yeah.
something's going on, right? And it comes back to what we make all of this mean. And that is where, then this connection with our thoughts come back into it is,
Mm-hmm.
what is the meaning that you are attaching to you feeling this emotion right now? And so I
Right.
think just normalizing these different emotions at an early age, from modeling that down, and also just how we are navigating them and moving through them and supporting ourselves in those times and in those moments, and
Mm-hmm.
just what you said about, it's not, these tools and these things are not just about communication, mind body awareness. This is the every human being. This is what we need to come back to,
Right.
because if we think about it, like at one point, ancestors, this is how they lived. This is how they lived their life, and we went so far away from this. But I feel like in
Mm-hmm.
ways we're coming back to this and bringing this back. But
Mm-hmm.
that is the way of being, the way of life, the way of having this mental wellness. Having
Mm-hmm.
this is the ultimate support for us in these
Yes.
times.
And when it just becomes a part of your daily practice, like you brush your teeth and take a shower, then when you are experiencing, or when a child is experiencing, dysregulation, they already have tools available to them that they're familiar with and that they know
Exactly.
work for them because they've been practicing them. So,
Mm.
it's very hard to learn a new skill when you're already in a state of dysregulation.
Yeah.
Your mind is not prepared for
Yeah.
that. But if you've been doing something over time, you can access it. It's available to you.
Yeah. I love it. I'd love for you to share, as we kind of come to a close and an end. This has just been so beautiful to really just witness and see how, yeah, like there's just so many tools and resources that can be brought into the classroom, and just the approach that you bring to things. I'd love for you to share where people can follow you, purchase your beautiful books as
Yes,
well.
thank you.
I'd
Thank
love for
you.
you to share.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. You can follow me on Instagram at Melanie the Educator. There's a link in my bio to my website, and you can purchase both of these books if you would like, if that's what interests you. And as well, I have started to create a list of a compilation of resources that parents and teachers alike can access for free. There's free downloads that can support you both as a teacher and as a mom. So there are, and as a parent, I should say, there are checklists and visuals there for you to access. As well, when you do purchase, what would you say? I have created activities from FDK all the way to grade 8 that correspond to this story. So if you are a teacher and you're looking for a follow-up activity, every activity is linked to our Ontario language curriculum, and teachers can notice the specific expectations above the activity to explain what the focus is. And so that is available for you as well as a free download.
So incredible, and such a beautiful thing for teachers, to also just bring a different spin on things, but also have it as part of the curriculum. So that's so
Yes.
beautiful.
Yes,
The
thank
last
you.
thing that I want to ask you before we fully close, I love asking this question, the things we go through. So
Okay.
if you could distill your life's, journey and wisdom into like one piece of advice, not one word, but a piece of advice, what comes to you?
My gosh, this is a loaded question.
I know. I
Wow.
love it.
I feel that, like, throughout life, I've had various journeys and experiences. It's hard to put it into one. Wow. Okay. If I reflect on where I have started, experiences, thoughts, feelings that have brought me to where I am today, I think we live in a product driven society, right? And what I mean by that is that our focus tends to be on how much we produce. So whether it's at home, for others, at work, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we couple this with the evolution of social media, you could say that we've become a society that defines ourselves by the quality and the quantity of our output, right? And of course, like, there's aspects, it's inevitable that, our roles and responsibilities, whether it's as parents, as in our professions, obviously production matters to a certain extent, right? But I guess what I'm saying is, within the complexities of your life, don't forget to respond to your inner joy, right? Like, don't just focus on counting how much you produce, but more so, like, considering, like, making what you produce count. I think that's my big takeaway. Like, as a mother, as a teacher, as a wife, you wear all of these hats, and naturally we are in a caregiving role. We want to do for others all the time. We want to produce, we want to perform. But I think that my journey in writing both of these books has really taught me about inner joy, inner fulfillment. And that's a really important message that you need to put out there, because when we are modeling that it is okay to live with more than one identity, you don't just have to be, the teacher, you don't just have to be the whatever it is that you are. You can be multiple things. You're teaching children that they can be multiple things too. You're teaching children that, life is hard, but they're harder and they can do the hard things and they deserve it. They're worth following their goals, their dreams, right? And, I just think when you make space for the things in your life that brings you joy, that's when you really answer the question of fulfillment. And I think that how great would it be to see these little beings walk around feeling fulfilled, feeling personally accomplished, feeling empowered.
Yeah, that's such a powerful response, and also just served me in ways too. I'm not gonna lie, like it was just this reflection, like in ways, things that like I needed to hear. And it's a message for, of course, for our little ones. We want them to know that they are so worth following their joy and their dreams. And also too, you provide this example, and there's so many parents and also teachers that just witnessing as well, that are doing the same thing in the sense of like following their dreams. And
Mm-hmm.
that is such a gift to witness because, um, you know, we're not too young and we're not too old ever
Right.
to fulfill our dreams, right? Like I
Yep.
remember, when I was, this was about actually 10 years ago. I went to Nicaragua, and I was doing this volunteering experience, and
Wow.
I was in college, and it was like the first time that I learned about this, that, you can go and volunteer abroad in these other
Mm-hmm.
countries and give back. And I was like, I want to do that. Like that's what I want to do. And it felt like I had to be, for some reason, I needed to be older. I needed to be X amount in order to go and do this. Why I made this correlation, I have no idea. But there just, it honestly came to a period where, I had lost my grandmother, and it was like this moment of just, oh my gosh, in a way, life is short. Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
love to always say that, because sometimes that can bring a little bit of overwhelm and anxiety, because then you feel like, oh, I gotta go and do. But I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a little bit of activation in it, where we can just see on the things that we're waiting to do for what, you know, this little chatter in our
Yeah,
mind that's telling you that you have to be this or you have to do that first in order
that's
to
right.
do this. And I think it's just a matter of challenging yourself and
Yep.
noticing, where in your life are you saying that? Are you saying,
Mm-hmm.
I need to do this, or I need to be this before I do this? And challenge that. Challenge that thought, that belief, and really challenge it. Because had I not gone to Nicaragua, like that was a beautiful experience. And I was 21, I thought I had to be like, 25 or in my 30s in order to go and do this. I
Mm-hmm.
need to be older. What is that? Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't matter the age. There are beautiful children out there that are accomplishing so many of their dreams, and it doesn't matter the age. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter the age. And that's what comes, coming back to just following your joy. Like, we're all worthy of this. We're all
Yeah,
worthy of these dreams.
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when Far Beyond Me was published, I was 39, turning 40. Like,
Mm-hmm.
who and I can relate to you so much so. Like I thought, okay, well, I didn't go to school for writing. I went to school
Mm-hmm.
for teaching. So, even though I'm an English major, like, I don't know, I can't write this book. Or
Yeah.
oh, you thought you had to. We always think that we have to do certain things at certain times, and I'm here to tell you, no, that's a lie. And
Bogus.
yeah, right, yeah, and I'm not saying, okay, everybody go and write a book. No, like this is about personal fulfillment,
Yeah.
um, and what brings you personal joy, whether you are 14, 40, or much older. Yeah,
Yeah. Doesn't matter the
right.
age.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. I am so grateful for you, for this conversation, for the words that you have put on paper. For
Thank
those
you.
that are tuning in and listening, and there is children in your life, this is going to be such a beautiful book that you can,
Mm.
um, read with them. Not just them reading on their own or reading to them, but with them. That is such a shift. It's just bringing these
Mhm.
conversations and these books. So Melanie's website. We'll leave everything down below so you can purchase, the beautiful books and words that she's written.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks to
Thank
everyone.
you so much. I'm so
You're so
appreciative
welcome.
of the opportunity to share on your platform. And, this is a message for families as well. You're reading this story, remind your children to make them recognize that
Mhm.
they have inner strength, they have self worth. But guess what? So do you. And let this be a reminder to you as well that you are never too old. You are never not important enough, you have value, you have worth. So you as well equally need to find your inner strength and bring you personal joy.
Amen to that over and over again. Thank you. And to those that
Thank
tuned
you
into this
again.
episode, thank you for being here. And all the links will be down below if you want to follow Melanie, purchase her books, and sending you so much
Yes.
love. And we will
Thank you.
see
Likewise.
soon.
Thanks to everyone watching. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to leave a review and continue the conversation with me over on social media. And we'll see you in the next episode.